let's mute that out. There we go. Let's get rid of that. Da, 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 da. Just make sure everything's working before I click this button here. Does appear to be working, which is a good start. Hey, there we go. That horrible moment of of is it working? It's always that brief moment where you sort of press the button and it all just goes a bit funny. We need to turn that off. Just let people come in, let people get started. Obviously, just was a little bit late getting the links out, of course, which is always a bit of fun. Does make my life slightly harder as a result, but it is what it is. Let us check what we're doing. The joy, of course, is there's fewer games to talk about, which does make life infinitely easier as a result. What we'll do is we'll do that. So that will then come up there. But yes, hopefully everyone's doing all right. Folk on the catch-up crew. Do, like I say, pop something in the comments. The warm-up question: give me your winners for the Steel City Showdown. So if you're feeling brave, if you're on the catch-up crew, put that in the comments as well. As we just, like I said, I'm just making sure all the links are in the various places that they need to be. Do remember to like and share and push it out and do all of those bits and pieces, because it is obviously working. I'm just making sure the stream is actually working for the other end. There we go. It does appear to be working. That's good. Had that moment. Like I say, everything's worked a little too well tonight, and we know our track record. So, it is what it is. Few thoughts coming in already about some winners for the Steel City Showdown, which we do like, of course. Yeah, we will. There is a fair bit to talk about, obviously, which we will kind of try and balance, because there aren't as many games to talk about as well. There's only 5 games in the WNIHL, but don't worry, we've got graphics, even if EIH forgot to do their own, so it's fine. I'm just gonna let's just have another swig of water. People are thinking he's very, very chirpy, or he's very, very chirpy to start the stream. I've had a piece of my wife made mini egg cheesecake, and so I've just had sugar before starting this. So the other thing I need to do is there's just some bits on the floor around my feet. I just need to move ever so slightly before I start. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid, and all beyond the binary. It is Wednesday. It is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful, and wacky world that is British ice hockey. On here on a Wednesday night, we cover the lot, every game, every league, because here is where British hockey lives. Whether it's men's, whether it's women's, if it's senior hockey played here in Great Britain, we will touch on it at some stage over the next 60 to 90 minutes. Belfast to Bradford, Leeds to Lee Valley, we leave no stone unturned. Your live show that touches on everything that's happened across the past week that has been played on the ice of British hockey as we steam towards the end. The men's domestic season has only officially got a week and a half left, as it were. And NHL Divisions 1 and Division 2 will hit their crescendo this weekend. At the Steel City Showdown, we will talk about who is going to be playing in that as we look through the playoff results from Divisions 1 and 2. Of course, we have got the SNL Scottish Cup final this coming weekend. We'll have a chat about that as well. And the playoffs have gotten underway in the SNL as well. It's sort of a 2-week playoff period, or at least allowing teams 2 weeks to kind of get stuff done. So there has been stuff to talk about there as well. Like I say, not much happening in the WNIHL ahead of next week. So we are going to talk about the Women's World Championships as Great Britain head to Spain to see if they can get promoted, and we will touch on the couple of domestic games that happened as well. But of course, we have our first proper qualifier for the Coventry weekend in the National Division. We have finally gotten to the end. We knew who was making the playoffs in the Elite League, but now we know who is playing whom this upcoming weekend in the quarterfinals. We have got plenty to talk about here tonight. Housekeeping as usual. Banners on the wall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to British hockey. The two big series that we have got ongoing this season, if you've missed it out, is our In the Box Thinking. That is my bit of insight and analysis from my commentary position high atop the Guildford spectrum, following on from this year, and I have been the match night voice of the Guildford Flames. This week's one from the last game of the regular season against Manchester, slightly delayed. Been a bit, had a few bits and pieces on actually. I have been doing some extracurricular writing, which I'll talk about in a minute, and also had to sit down and do my my vote because there is a media vote as part of the Elite League All-Star teams, bits and pieces. So Mugginsy had to do that. I got through most of it in 2 minutes, and I'm going to stop for 20 minutes on the last defenseman spot in the second team because. Of course I did, because that's life, isn't it, on that front? But that's going to be coming out tomorrow. What it's going to be for the next In the Box Thinking, it's going to be a review of Guildford versus Manchester, and then a little bit some thoughts as well as we head into this weekend and Guildford's playoff quarter final. For this season, we'll do a bit of a bigger deep dive when we get to the end. Curtain down will of course occur post those weekends as well. But there's all of that stuff there on the website, as well as our hockey story series, long-form, in-depth pieces of content where you get we go and tell the stories from the breadth and depth of British and world hockey. Of course, the Power of Stories, my chat with Nick Rothwell, former Guildford Flame, former Sheffield Steeler, and now the man behind the Retribe Collective, as they trying to help hockey players with some of the sort of mental challenges, mental side of the game, and dealing with accountability and bits and pieces like that. We've got our chat as well with the folk over at Oz Hockey Media. Of course, the Australian season not too far away. One of my favourite things. Glad to see a few people picking up. Help Rossi from Slapshot Syndicate pick his team for this season. That's there as well. Our chat with Brad Bonello. My chat with Luca Tasadri and Tyler Delabatucci. He's going to have a very busy weekend. But plenty of stuff. 15 years worth of stuff to check out over on the website bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Down in the description, you've got the links to all of our social media. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Blue Sky, and there's also the link down there to 3D Lee, because 3D Lee, maker of such wonderful signs and bits and pieces for us, massively appreciative of all that Lee does for us here, and also the link to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Never going behind the paywall, but if you do enjoy what you like and you want to keep the lights on, keep the wheels spinning, then by all means do consider popping across and dropping a few coins in there. That'd be appreciated. If you haven't got the money, totally cool. All we ask, like stuff, share stuff. Let's keep the algorithm hamster happy, fat and fed, and we'll have some fun. The other big thing, of course, to talk about, and most, like I say, if you're singing along, if you know the words, but we are live here every Wednesday during the season, so we have got a couple of weeks left. But of course, we love our catch-up crew. We know a few people who are strictly in the catch-up crew because they're busy on the Wednesday nights. But if you are here live, it does mean that you get the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chat about whilst we walk our way through British hockey for the next hour and a bit, please do feel free to do so. All we ask is that if you're using the chat, do remember the golden rule. Rule number 1 here at BOTW, DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings. We are going to have a jolly good time. Blimey, blimey, blimey. A few thoughts coming in. Pretty much uniform. Everyone's got Blackburn and Sutton. A few people got a couple of Sloughs in there as well. I can see, but a few people think that Guildford are going to nick past Peterborough. I think for me that's going to be one of the more interesting games because that is either going to be razor thin or one of the other teams is going to blow the other one out. Because of course, plenty to talk about, and we will chat about that once we get to the divisional matchups that are coming. The one thing, of course, now I'm guessing if Witkowski gets on one, then D-side could surprise the Hawks. You'd probably be fair on that one, on Jonathan. Like I said, we'll chat about Division 1 and Division 2 in a bit. Where are we, though? Top of the show. So, of course, now, across all of the men's senior divisions, the regular season is now done. Across the lot. With the Elite League finishing its regular season this past weekend, it means that everybody is now officially on playoff watch. Teams' seasons are done. As we know from the Elite League, Fife and Dundee have skated off into the distance, put on their golf shoes and headed towards the fairways already. We've seen, of course, a few bits of news. Matt Bowden's joining Craig Garrigan in retirement from the Dundee Stars. Has come out as well as the fact that Dundee will have not just new ownership, but a new head coach next season. Mark Lefebvre leaving Dundee, heading to the League Magnus to be the head coach of Anglet, which, to be fair, works out quite well. It's in the Basque Country, and the rink is by the beach. It's like being in Ryde with nicer weather. So there'll be a huge amount of change at Dundee next season. Fascinated to see what goes on there. As for Fife, it's still a little bit murky in the waters as to what's happening in Fife, but they have at least made it to the end point of the season and got there. But as we will see, both teams did finish quite a way outside of the playoffs. We don't know exactly what's happening with Fife. We will obviously hear bits over the summer, and we are told that they are down to make the start line for the 26-27 Elite League campaign. We know for certain Dundee will be there, Michael O'Rourke having taken over, and the Stars and the Clan, part of the same ownership group. What will Dundee look like come the start of the next season under not just new ownership but new coaching? Some of the familiar faces, I'm sure, may well be back, but so we know, like I say, a couple that will not be returning from the next season. I quite like Matt Bowden's. The fact he's retired is a bit of a shame. Did strike me as that sort of archetypical sort of third line elite league kind of player that could really, really make a bit of an impact if he got on a bit of a hot streak, but has had his last season of professional hockey for now. As we all know, retirements in professional hockey are like retirements in pro wrestling. You don't believe it until you actually stop seeing them on that front. Of course, we've had award season start for a variety of teams as well. Sheffield did theirs the other night and handed out about 35 awards. Guildford did theirs and handed out all of 2. Which was a thing, which is a thing. But either way, it is. We've hit the point now where the regular season has drawn to its conclusion. Re-signing announcements are coming out. We've had re-signing announcements in the National Division, certainly out of basis. So we knew about Stuart Mogg. George Norcliffe announced as now being back for the Bison for 26-27. As a Bison fan, personally, big fan of that. Love George as a player. Love George as a human. He's a good guy to have around any club at any level. So the fact that he is back for another year, not a huge surprise, I think. Certainly very capable of playing up and down the lines at national division level. Of course, like I've said for the Bison, this year was a bit of a mulligan. Now the club are back and they kind of know what they need to do. Now it's about pushing on and finding some spaces to be able to do that. Though, of course, probably Bison may have been hoping that Ollie Hemmingsmar would have taken the step up and signed permanently, but he has decided to go back to Slough for another campaign as they're heading into a very, very busy couple of weeks for the Jets. News, of course, as well out from the last couple of days out of the north. Sam Gospel back for another season for the Leeds Knights. Another 3 years of Kieran Brown for Leeds, and already signed up for next season, but has tacked on another 3 years onto the end of his contract. Is Edgar Vengus. He has signed on now for effectively 4 more years in Leeds. For what's been a bit of a tough year, a bit of an off year as well for the Knights. Some of the high performing players still very much committed to the project. Of course, Sam Gospel a bit closer to the end of his career than the beginning, but getting Kieran Brown for 3 years, of course, is it's going to cause a few bits of discussion for people, isn't it? Really, seeing one of the most talented British players to ever to play at that level. Now, of course, signing on for another 3 years of the National Division. A lot of people wondered, would this be the summer? And of course, we can all make the jokes about British hockey contracts and so on and so forth. So we will see whether he does make the full 3 years. However, that is the intention at the moment for Kieran Brown, is to, for another 3 years as the king, pardon the terminology, of the castle. Lots of other bits and pieces going on as well. Of course, we're going to hear more stuff coming out over the next couple of weeks before we sign off for our summer break and our summer schedule, where we will drop down to doing one a month at the back end of. Usually, we do the last Wednesday of a month. That might be interesting because that might technically mean that I'm doing one the day before I fly to Berlin. We will see how that one goes on that front. But lots and lots of stuff going on. Any other big stories, of course, please do chuck them in the chat. We'll make sure that we touch on them as we go. We will talk about some other specific bits as we go along, because of course with some team seasons ending, it's mean that some players have retired, some coaches have stepped away, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot to be covered, even though the physical amount of games that's going on has diminished. Just having a look as to what we've got in the chat. A bit of a giggle for you all. An SHL match last night went to 63 minutes of overtime. Yeah, fourth period on top of the fourth period, 20 minutes on top of the normal 3. I did see this, Mikey. By all means, put some more details because I've forgotten which teams it was who were in that one. But yeah, playoffs are happening everywhere. Actually, that's one thing we should talk about, because Liam Kirk and Berlin are playing right now in the semi-finals of the DEL playoffs. Certainly certainly was a bit of a tough one. It was a bit back and forth. Berlin eventually winning out, but in their series against Straubing by 4-2. It's currently 6-3 Berlin in the third period of game one against the so Berlin coming into the playoffs as the 6th seed, going up against the Kölner Haie, who as the first seeds swept Schwenningen by 4-0 in their series. But just having a look at bits and pieces, Kirk has at least got some points on the bits and pieces. We're just going to quickly look at as to what Kirky's doing right now. Where's he gone? 94. Kirk, well, here's one. I was going to say Kirk hasn't put the puck in the back of the net, but in a 6-3 game, Liam Kirk has got 3 assists on the night in 14 minutes and 16 seconds of ice time. That's not bad. Had power play time, had short-handed time as well. But a big third period. Berlin were 2-1 up going into the second period and scored 3 goals in the second to push themselves away. The other semi-final in the DEL at the moment is Mannheim and Red Bull Munich. Game 1 there. Munich 2-1 up 40 minutes in. Skellefteå and Luleå in game 1 of the semi-finals was this game that went into the 4th period of overtime. Fans didn't leave the arena until 11:30 local time after a 7 p.m. puck drop. Hey, it's the 2025 Steel City Showdown, everybody. Too soon? Probably too soon. But yeah, so Liam Kirk cracking away in the playoffs, in the semi-finals for the Eisbären Berlin. We do like to keep tabs on him, but of course we're edging towards the finals in pretty much every major league across Europe. France is in its finals. The Eisliga is cracking through its semi-finals at the moment. The SHL, as you've seen, is in its playoff bits and pieces in its semi-final stage 2. Lots of hockey to find, lots of hockey to watch, and we should probably talk about some of the hockey that's been played here in Great Britain as a result. Starting with the Elite League, as we usually do, the last weekend of the regular season. 5 games Saturday, 5 games on Sunday into the bargain. And while Sheffield, their form has been a bit up and down recently. Defensively, not quite as solid as a lot of people think. A lot of people would expect them to be, and had some pretty funky results in the last little while. And then on Saturday, decided to take all of that frustration out on the Glasgow Clan in the House of Steel, winning by 8-1. Certainly one of those, as you've seen, Mitch Hurd making friends and influencing people everywhere he goes. I was going to call it, essentially the Wooden Spoon, although you might want to call it the Wooden Stovey Spoon Derby. Fife winning their final home game of the season in overtime against the Dundee Stars. Cardiff and Coventry, pretty back and forth, close-knit tie. But the Devils, who were trying to lock up second place, beat the Blaze at the Vindico by 2-1. Manchester trying desperately to hold on to 5th place going into this, trying to get back to 5th place, having been leapt over by Guildford. But then they lose at home to Nottingham in what was, as we've all seen from the videos, a pretty tempestuous game. Brad Jenyon and Josh Tetlow going toe-to-toe at centre ice. Hits flying in all over the place. Various people fined because in the last weekend of the season nobody's getting suspended unless they murder somebody. But either way, a tempestuous one. And we'll talk about what that could mean in a bit. Belfast, well, a bit of squad rotation for them, but a Flames team with something to play for turned up and did the business on Belfast. A 6-2 win, a hat-trick from Josh Waller to end the Flames' road travels in the regular season. 6-2 they win over the Giants. And then that took us into Sunday, and well, inconsistencies, thy name is Sheffield at the moment, as they travel up to Glasgow, having put 8 on the Clan the night before, and they're losing overtime by 3-2. Mick Messner with the all-important OT winner for the Clan, who, well, they're 8th, and they pretty much knew they were staring down the barrel of the Belfast Giants. But being able to get some goals on the board and beat one of the teams from the top half is no bad thing for Mike Surrant and crew heading into next weekend. We'll leave any discussions on Twitter about their net minding for another time. Nottingham, well, they couldn't capitalise on their previous weekend, on their Saturday result against Manchester. A little beaten up, could you say, as they lose at home by 4-1 against the Cardiff Devils. That locked the Devils into 2nd place. The Dundee and Fife about face. They went to the DIA to round out their regular season as those two sides head off into the summer break. And a second overtime winner of the weekend for the Fife Flyers means that they get the nod over the Stars, get bragging rights at the end of the weekend. Albeit the Stars finish 9th and the Flyers are 10th. Excuse me, struggling a little bit there with a very, very itchy nose, so we'll just blow that and hope that it works. Belfast managed to overcome their shortcomings on Saturday evening at home by winning in the Sky Dome against the Coventry Blaze. Obviously, quite a close game, this one, a little bit back and forth, but again, good teams find a way, and the Giants sneak one out in the end. Guildford, well, had been below Manchester for every week of the regular season up until the night before this one, and then with the final game of the season between these two, Manchester go a goal up in the second period. Tyler Hynam sprung on the 2-on-1 by Gary Hayden to get the goal for the Storm. But then 2 goals in the third period, one from Tyler Brazuzzo, and I've completely forgotten off the top of my head who scored the other goal. Matthew Gosselin, there we go. Matthew Gosselin, who picked up Forward of the Year for the Flames at the Supporters Club night. Gosselin's 50th point of the regular season, getting the win for the Flames. That means the Flames get 5th. And the Storm get 6th. So the league table finally done. 54 games done. All of the Challenge Cup nonsense sorted out as well. And as we already knew, the Belfast Giants, champions of the Elite League again, heading into the postseason in 2026. All of the results as it plays out means that Cardiff are 2nd. Nottingham and Sheffield end up going to the 4th tiebreaker to separate the sides. So you can see Sheffield with a better goal difference. But the tiebreak is points, followed by total wins, followed by regulation wins, followed by record against the sides. And the Panthers, with the better record over the course of the season over Sheffield, means the Panthers get 3rd, the Steelers get 4th. Guildford sneak 5th place in the last weekend, followed by Manchester, Coventry and Glasgow. As you can see there, the Stars, 26 points off the playoffs in 9th. Fife have had the biggest point improvement of any team from last season to this, having finished last season on 12 and then finished this season on 28, but still out of the playoffs by quite some margin. The lowest goal scorers in the league with 118 goals over the 54 games. But what that means is this coming Saturday, it means first place 8th Belfast take on Glasgow. Belfast have elected to have their home game first. 2nd plays 7th. That's the Cardiff Devils travelling on Saturday to the Coventry Blaze. 3rd plays 6th. So after the Storm Shelter slug out on Saturday, they will return to Manchester this coming Saturday night for the Manchester Storm and the Nottingham Panthers. And 4th plays 5th. Guildford, the form team in the Elite League right now, 5-0 in their last 5. They have won 11 of 14 at home. 11 of the last 14 at home have Guildford. Against the Sheffield side, that's 2-1-2 in its last 5, and has got a few people very, very concerned about its form. That is how things look on Saturday night, and Saturday, of course, is where you can find me. The last game of the domestic season at home for the Guildford Flames, and the last of my first full season as the match night voice of Flames TV. It has been a year. It's been a really, really good, really enjoyable year. Looking to go out on a high in this one. You can join us. Just before 6 o'clock for full coverage of Guildford and Sheffield on Saturday night, and then into Sunday, everybody turns everything around. Guildford and Sheffield will meet twice in the space of 24 hours. It's a 6 p.m. face-off on Saturday and a 4 p.m. face-off at the House of Steel on Sunday. Panthers and Storm, Devils and Blaze, and then Cardiff and Glasgow and Belfast will meet at 7 p.m. on a Sunday night. I don't like that, if I'm 100% honest. But either way, we will by the end of Sunday evening, we will know the 4 teams who are heading to the Elite League Playoff Finals weekend at the Motorpoint Arena on the 18th and 19th of April. So with the Elite League done, let's have a quick look at the National Division from last weekend. Friday is playoff day in Steel Dog Country, and Bear Gendanov was the man once again. He has a habit of stepping up and doing great things. You can only imagine where he will finish on most people's voting when it comes to the All-Stars. But the Cats do get a point out of the encounter, but Dogs win by 5-4 in Group A. In Group B, well, I know some of the wrong... apologies. In Group A, I do know, obviously, some of the Romford fans were not happy about this one. If you're 4-0 up, you should win the game. That's generally how that goes. But Peterborough refusing to go quietly into the night, needing results and needing points on the board to have any hope of getting back to Coventry for the third year in a row. Of course, winners in 2024, finalists in 2025 off the back of Nathan Salem deciding he was going to do it all by himself. And a 6-5 regulation win was a massive result for Ashley Tate's side heading into the following weekend. The other game on Saturday in Group A, well, the Dogs and the Cats about facing headers to Swindon. Swindon won, knowing that they would not play on Sunday, would need to look at results to see what their future would potentially be. In Group B, we went all the way to the very death. Leeds and Hull were only separated by the most razor-thin of margins. But of all the people, and he's not very popular with some, but Ollie Endicott was on the doorstep at the top of the crease to poke the puck past Alexi Heiskanen to give the Knights a full points heading into Sunday's games. And then, well, having watched the highlights of this one, certainly a very, very interesting, a very up-tempo game between MK and Telford. A lovely hit in this one laid by Josh Kelly. It should be said, nothing more you love than a good, clean, open ice hit. But the Lightning managed to hold the Tigers at bay. 6-3 the final score at the Thunderdome on Saturday evening. We then headed into Sunday, and the big result that you can see is, at least in terms of qualification, is there in the middle. Romford's regulation time win in Peterborough against the Phantoms meant two things happened at once. The Phantoms are out and cannot qualify for Coventry. They are the first team officially out of contention for the playoff finals weekend, and it sealed the place at Coventry for the Swindon Wildcats, the league champions, whose record at the Coventry weekend is poor, to say the best. They had a 10-year absence from the finals weekend in Coventry, and when they were there last year, were outclassed and outplayed. The last couple of times they've been. What heralds now for the championship winning Cats this time around? In Group B, Hull got a measure of revenge, though Leeds did sneak a point. But it is Hull who win by 4-3 at home. And then Telford managed to turn over MK, having lost in Milton Keynes the night before. The Tigers go back home to Shropshire, 6:30 on a Sunday night. It's where you find the Tigers, and it's where they have managed to find themselves a 4-2 win over the Lightning. And that means, as we click the button and tick through and have a look at the tables, Group B there at the bottom looks absolutely crazy because Leeds, having, by virtue of the fact that they've picked up a couple of overtime losses, have 6 points. They are, however, not safe and not through. Every other team in that in Group B is on 4 points. Hull at the bottom by virtue of a couple of bits and pieces. And Hull, of all teams, the only team not to get double figures worth of goals across the first 4 games. Everything to play for in Group B. That whole thing will be decided this coming weekend. And then as we see there in Group A, well, Peterborough, as we say, officially eliminated. 1-3 through 4 games. Ashley Tate will not be heading back to the Sky Dome where he once played his trade and won a Grand Slam with the Coventry Blaze. The Cats are through with 7 points because as an absolute maximum, they will be level. They would be level on points with everybody, but records mean that such things will happen. The Dogs mathematically can still end up being eliminated. It does look like it'd be a bit of a tough ask though, as we click through and have a look at the fixtures for next week. Why will it be tough? Because Sheffield and Romford have got to play each other. A big thanks, as always, our NHL match night, National Division match night graphics provided by the wonderful GB Under 18 netminder Max Van Mullen, the Romford Raiders and the Romford Buccaneers. Of course, the Bucks out at the first attempt in the playoffs this year, knocked out by Streatham, but Max still managing to knock out some high-quality graphics for us. Friday night at Ice Sheffield, the Romford Raiders need to win out this weekend to have any chance of making it back to the Coventry Sky Dome and the playoff weekend. They will have their opportunity on Friday night at Ice Sheffield against the Seal Dogs. 3 games then on Saturday. The other game in Group A, and well, it's a leisurely pace for Swindon and Peterborough. Though of course the Cats will want to finish top to make sure that they are the first seed from Group A and get home bench and last change in their semi-final. In Group B, as we know, it is going to be hammer and tongs all the way, but we do know who's playing each other. Hull and Telford, MK and Leeds on the last weekend of the playoffs, because then we head into Sunday and everybody will about face Leeds versus MK at the Castle, Peterborough versus Swindon up at Bretton, Romford versus Sheffield, and Romford may well know their destiny by that point. We will see, of course, what happens there, and then of course the big games we're looking at will be Telford and Hull, and MK and Leeds. Massive permutations. A couple of these side seasons ends this coming Sunday. We'll just click some buttons, work our way back for a sec, have a little pause, have a little drink. Wooden Tunnocks tea cake. Now, if you get a wooden spoon for coming last, Mike. So it's the Stovey spoon. It's the spoon they used to stir and serve up the Stovey, surely. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to chuck in. I'm just very, very quickly going to press some buttons. And there is the confirmation. Final buzzer has sounded at the Uber Arena in Berlin. Berlin take game one of the DEL semi-final over the Kölner Haie. Köln, who finished top of the regular season in the DEL. Nothing extra there for Liam Kirk. A 3-assist night for the captain of Great Britain and the country's best player by quite some distance. Berlin do have a fantastically named player. His name is Markus Vikingstad, which is the most Viking name ever. Let's just double check any other bits and pieces. No rather big names there as well. What's happening in... Oh, Mannheim versus Munich is now at 2-2. Mannheim have tied that game early in the third. Zach Solo with the goal for the Adler Mannheim. Remember the wild card in Group B, Anthony, with Leeds in GB under 18. Here's the thing, Jamie, and I know, and here's the thing. Jamie is correct, of course. GB under 18 is heading off this weekend to start their World Championships as well. There are a lot of Leeds players going, and that does leave them quite a few players short. Of all the teams you don't want to count out in a high pressure situation like this, I don't think it's going to be Leeds. So if we skip back just a sec, because everybody will look at these games knowing that they need to beat MK to get something. If Leeds lose both these games, they are in real trouble. MK on 4 points, getting 4 points would take them to 8. The problem here is even 5 players down and a really short bench, I would not put it past Leeds winning at home. And there's the issue. Because the big thing here, for me, Hull or Telford, one of those two teams has to win both those games. One of those teams has to win both those games. For me, as I was going to say, if we scoot back and look at that table, if in a world where MK, Leeds, Telford and Hull all win a game this weekend, that table doesn't change. So between Hull and Telford, they have to go into this weekend, and one of those two teams between Hull and Telford has to win out. They have to win both games, and they have to win both. If they win in regulation or OT, doesn't matter, but they have to win both, I think is the trick there. Because, and especially if you're Hull, it's even more important for Hull. Because if Hull end up on 6 points, they're below Telford. So they're below Leeds, because Leeds have got the record over the two sides. So if you're Hull, you need something. But all you can really do in this situation, of course, is just go through and win both and win your games. Tigers to win away this weekend is a must, says Mike. That's right, yeah. Sam Gospel still exists. Joe Scutts. We'll talk about Joe momentarily, but he has made a very good point there. Sam Gospel is arguably the best minder of the National League era. You can have Brad Day in the discussion, you can have Rennie Marr in the discussion, you can have Jordan Headley in the discussion, but I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, the best netminder of the National Division era is Sam Gospel. I'm not carrying out Leeds in the slightest. We all know Aldrich is a canny coach. He very much is. We do know that for sure. Lots and lots of bits and pieces, obviously. Lots of stuff to navigate as I come back to the full screen. All games so far in Group B have been won by the home team, just saying. Jamie, as a long-time viewer of all of my bits and pieces, you know very well, I don't believe in luck. I believe in the 3 C's: Christ, coincidence, and cake. And if one doesn't solve your issue, it'll at least make you feel better about the others. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't know. Must have the allergies must be kicking in late at night for whatever reason, but it is what it is. But yes, I can see Leeds and MK splitting this weekend. But if they do, like I say, for me, Hull need to win Saturday night. They need to win Saturday night, and then it's going to be hammer and tongs. And the thing, of course, here is a Matthew Davis coach team or a Tom Watkins coach team. Because Tom Watkins teams will play with emotion, but will be very, very stoic. And Matty's team is going to come out all guns blazing with tons of emotion, and there is the trick on that one. I would like to see Hull make it because I think it'd be different. And as a club whose birth I reported on very heavily, I think it'd be really, really fun to see what the Seahawks can do at Coventry. But as is the nature of these things, the best team will win out, and that's how that works. Hull, of course, have got a netminder, and with all due respect to Brad Day, I think Heskey is the better netminder out of the two of them. But Hull have 8 goals in 4 games. Got to put the puck in the net, and there's the big thing this weekend. If Hull jump on Telford early, different kettle of fish. For MK and Leeds, if you're MK, the game plan looks pretty simple. Roll your lines. Just roll your lines. That's all you got to do on that front. And I think it's going to be... and I think you tire Leeds out is what you do. If you're MK, it's short, sharp shifts. Wave after wave after wave. You've got to resist the temptation if you're Lewis Christie to shorten your bench if you can get away with it, especially especially not shortening your bench too early. If it gets dicey towards the end, by all means drop your 4th, but keep rolling those lines because Leeds are effectively going to be a 2-line team this weekend. If you're Leeds, put it on MK early. You might have to drop back and use the second period for energy conservation. That's fine. But if you force MK to panic, if you force MK to chase the game, we've seen the issues they've had this year chasing the game. And that could be the bigger thing. Because ultimately, as we've just mentioned, if you are Leeds and you need to defend a lead, there is nobody better than Sam Gospel to help you do that. Especially if it comes down to Sunday in the Castle. You wouldn't want to bet against it. In Group A, well, if you're Swindon, if you're Peterborough, if I'm Peterborough, I'm chucking all the kids in and just letting them have a bit of a run out. If you're Swindon, you want to make sure you don't trip over the banana skin because if you're Swindon, you want to get first place because first place means in your semi-final you are the home team and you get last change. Massive in Coventry, huge in a big game like that because you always get to react to what the other team does rather than the other way around. Just beat MK. That's what every other team wants. Bless MK. They just can't make friends. But in terms, like I say, otherwise, my issue is the big. Only the real big question in Group A going into this weekend: can the Romford Raiders beat the Sheffield Steel Dogs home and away on back-to-back nights? Because if you put it down to one game at the Sapphire, you wouldn't necessarily bet against Romford pulling something out of the fire. The problem is they've got to do it back-to-back nights, and Romford are travelling twice. Yes, admittedly, yes, it's Friday to Sunday rather than Friday to Saturday, but the point still stands. You've got a rested Sheffield team who will have the luxury of not having to do anything on Friday apart from turn up and wait. And Romford, well, we'll see what happens there. Joe has stuck something in the chat as well, which is very important. If you're Swindon, top the group, you also pick which semi-final you have. And if you're Swindon, do you pick you would assume they would pick the early semi-final for the longer rest. Either way, a lot going on A lot going on there. We of course have not had word out of too much out of Peterborough. We have seen, of course, that a few bits about TJ Anderson. Him and Scott Robson had a bit of a coming together. There are some interesting bits about TJ Anderson's reaction to some bits, but he has been given his medicine by the player review panel, as a Scott Robson, because let's face it, TJ Anderson didn't fight himself, and Robson antagonises the situation. It's not that big of a. They even that up pretty fairly, but given that he's in the chat and he's talking about it, of course, as you have seen today, that the streaming bits and pieces are out for Coventry. And once again, for the second year in a row, it will be Muggins here, alongside Joe Scutts, to talk you through both National Division semi-finals, and then on the Sunday we will talk you through the NHL Division 1 National Final between the Blackburn Hawks and the Slough Jets, and then we will call the final game of the NIHL season as the NIHL National Division Playoff Final is played on Sunday the 19th of April. Joe and I have nothing to do with the prices. If you want to buy it and you can justify that spend, you absolutely do that. If you have an issue with that, you can't take that up with me and Joe. As ever, what Joe and I can promise you is that we are going to be prepared. And genuinely, he hates me saying it, but I say it anyway a lot of the time. Joe is brilliant at what he does, and the two of us know how to work together, and you will get the very best of both of us for the duration of that weekend. Irrespective of the fact that I've gone off this year and I've commentated on the Elite League, one of the big things that I, hopefully, by doing a show where I talk about every division every week, have proven, is that British hockey is not one league, it's not one club, it is not one set of entities. It is the whole lot, and I have kept a massive amount of eyes on the NIHL this entire year. Did I get to as many games as I wanted to? No. But you bet your bottom dollar I've been watching, and when it comes to Saturday the 18th and Sunday the 19th of April, Joe and I will be prepared. We are going to talk you through the last 4 games of the NIHL season, and we are going to do our absolute level best to take you through the best of entertainment. And as Joe has put lovingly in the chat, as both we hate and love you all equally, please go and make your comments about bias elsewhere. The best part though was during the Milton Keynes Leeds game last year, which, if you haven't watched the semi-final, go find it on YouTube because it's all there to watch. Joe and I got simultaneously in that game accused of being biased towards MK and towards Leeds. So that tells you how good Joe and I are. We're that good. We're good enough where everyone thought we hated everybody, and it's true. We hate everybody equally, but especially at that point of the weekend. As Jamie's also put in the chat, the Coventry Marathon is Sunday morning. However, it looks like the route this year has been changed from previous, and some of the bits and pieces, it will come out of the city centre quite early and not finish too close to where we'll be. Should hopefully be okay. Some of the parking situations should be better. Yeah, and modest. Like at this point, mate, I'm never modest about Joe. I maintain that Joe is one of the best of what he does in the country, irrespective of the level. And I have to, at this point, believe in myself that I've at least been good enough where I got away, where I've been able to do what I've done. So, always room for improvement. We want to get better every time we do it, and that is the hope. That after a year of both of us commentating, we will both be able to be even better than we were last year, and hopefully the action will be just as good as it was last year. If we get another semi-final like we got out of MK and Leeds, we're in for a cracker of a weekend, that is for sure. And as ever, Division 1 National Final, one of my favourite games of the year, Blackburn versus Slough. This could be really interesting. This could be very, very interesting. This is a styles clash, ladies and gentlemen. That is absolutely certain. This is very, very different mentalities going head to head. And of course, they may go head to head a bit later on this upcoming weekend as well. What we will do very quickly, though, we will look, before we look at what is happening towards Sheffield, let's have a quick look at what is happening north of the border, because Scotland, of course, is rocking and rolling the SNL into its playoff stage as well. Happening across kind of the next 2 weekends, It's a little bit of a strange one, this one. I don't quite understand why Edinburgh weren't able to play both legs of their semi-final this weekend. The first leg, though, very much went their way, winning by 7-0 at home against North Ayr. The problem is that Edinburgh's second leg is next Sunday. You'll find out why that is a problem momentarily. Two ties, though, ended up being this I'll get the words out. Both legs for this weekend. Paisley started off quite well on Saturday with a 2-0 win at home against the Kirkcaldy Kestrels at the Braehead Arena. And then, well, one-sided was the one way to describe it. Whitley with the 5-0 victory away at Aberdeen on Saturday. A big advantage for the Warriors heading into Sunday. Shout out the Aberdeen Lynx as well, as they have unveiled their plaque in memory of Gary Kelly, who of course we sadly lost last year. And then into Sunday, and the two playoff ties that are now finished. Kirkcaldy and Paisley fought out a 2-2 draw in the second leg, but after their shutout victory on Saturday night, the Paisley Pirates are off to the SNL playoff finals weekend. And in their first season in Scottish hockey, Whitley, well, they missed out on the league title by a few points, but they will head to the playoff weekend as well. A 5-1 victory over Aberdeen in the second leg at Hillheads means a 10-1 aggregate victory over the Lynx for Tony Hand's side. And it's going to be an even busier weekend next week, an even busier time for the Warriors, because not only have they made it to their first SNL playoff weekend, the Scottish Cup final next Saturday at the Fife Arena. Remember, the women's playoffs are earlier in the day at Kirkcaldy. It's a big day's worth of hockey. So you've got the women's playoffs, and then in the evening, the Scottish Cup final. Edinburgh and Whitley, the capitals, took the league title. Can their march towards the Grand Slam take its second step? Or will Whitley invade Scotland and take the SNL Cup back south of Hadrian's Wall to Hillheads? This also coming this weekend as well. The other playoff tie will have both of its legs. Dundee and Solway Sharks SNL will meet home and away. Saturday in Dumfries, Sunday at the DIA. And then on Sunday, so Edinburgh will play in the Cup final on Saturday, and then the second leg of their playoff quarter final against North Ayr. That will take place in North Ayr on Sunday evening. And then we click the button, and it's time to look at things from across the NIHL and the regional divisions, because there were games that needed to be deciding. There are places at the Steel City Showdown in Sheffield at stake. North 1, Billingham, Blackburn. And, well, these two sides, we know they know how to put on a bit of a show, and it was a bit of a back and forth. Ultimately, that late goal from Adam Barnes proving to be all important. Billingham 3, Blackburn 3 after the first leg. James Riddick and Charlie Thompson with the other goals for the Hawks in this one. James Moss with 2 and Chris Sykes with the other for the Stars at the end of the first leg. As you can see there, though, certainly everybody had their shooting boots on. Jacob Hammond facing 43 shots, Harrison Walker facing 50 and making 47 saves into the bargain. No half measures there. In the other semi-final in North 1, and this one was live and free on YouTube, which was a good and interesting watch. But the D-side Dragons doing the business over the Hull Jets. 6-2 the final score at the World's Most Versatile Arena, as the Dragons just showing their little bit of class. As you can see, they're 5-0 up after 32 minutes and change. Before Hull gave them a little bit of a scare, but ultimately in the end, the Dragons putting that extra goal and keeping the tie very much in their favour. A hat-trick on the night from Colin Cromie. 2 goals for Theo Malone. Ross Kennedy with the other goal for the Dragons. The 2 Jets goals coming from Ian Kerman, and because he scores all the time at the moment, Ian Daintith. And then in North Wales on Sunday night, they decided to all together now, because we all know the old BOTW classic, and I think we can throw it out here. Why defend when you cannot defend? 6-5 final score on Sunday, and one where Hull was starting to claw themselves back into this ever so slightly before D-side eventually just kept them at bay. Dragons win 6-5 in North Wales on Sunday evening, 12-7 on aggregate. The final score in a one that neither netminder is going to want to really read too much of, as you can see down there. 5 goals and 37 shots for Tyler Delavatouche, 6 on 42 for Dan Crowe. Not really the biggest, not much in the bigger scheme of things because of what is coming for them. Colin Cromie with 2 goals, Jake Witkowski with 2 goals, The other goals for the Dragons coming from Ross Kennedy and Matty Barlow. Mark Florence, Scott Morris, Bo Reeder, Kieran Beach and Ian Kerman with the other goals for the Jets, whose season comes to an end, but certainly a pretty productive playoff campaign, spooking Solihull out of the playoffs in the quarter-finals and then putting up, well, not a successful charge against Deeside, but one that they should be proud of. And with the other semi-final tied at 3 apiece, Blackburn, back on home ice, showed their class. 1-0 up after 18 seconds. The Hawks showed absolutely no mercy. And, well, the Billingham Stars' reign atop everything in North 1 comes to an end. No trophies back to the Forum this year after sweeping the board last season. It's going to be a summer of rethinking and rebuilding up in Billingham as the Hawks march on. An 8-3 victory on home ice on Sunday. A lot of frayed tempers about this. Handshakes going amiss. Accusations of deliberately hurting players. Not necessarily sure that's quite what it is. I've seen some of the video, and yes, it is not. It's not the sort of thing that you would anticipate. However, these things happen. These things do happen in the playoffs, and ultimately, one of the things we'd like to see maybe is sometimes maybe the refs making a bit of a bigger call a bit earlier and maybe clamping down on some of these hits. But as you can see there, right at the end, Darren Statisfield getting a match for getting a match penalty for fighting, getting 25. A match, apologies. Certainly a game misconduct for fighting if you're Darren Statisfield late on in the piece. Certainly not happy at the way things had gone. Either way, the Hawks march into the Steel City Showdown. A hat-trick on the night for Adam Barnes, 2 goals for Jacob Lutwich, the other goals for Charlie Thompson, Jakob Hayek and Sam Zajac. The Stars goals on the night, 2 for Rollins Grittans and 1 for Ben Greenhalgh. And so what we'll do, we've got the graphics, so we'll have a look at them momentarily, because I'll pull them up because EIH did make some graphics for them. T-shirts to sell at Coventry. Yes, why defend when you cannot defend? I think it works better in the regular season than it does in the playoffs. Into South 1 then, and the final what would turn out to be the final weekend in charge of the Chelmsford Chieftains for Lewis Clifford. Losing the first leg of the semi-final at home, a close-fought battle between second and third in South 1. Chieftains 4, Red Hawks 6 after the first leg. A few more penalties on the game for the Red Hawks. You can see there are only 4 minutes of penalties for the Chieftains in this one. But Streatham come out the other side with the victory and the advantage heading into the second leg. Cam Bartlett, Grant Bartlett, Sasha Maltsev and Halton Barnes-Garner with the goals for the Chieftains. For the Red Hawks, 2 apiece for Ziggy Beasley and Danny Ingoldsby, Ethan Lane and Dan Rose with the other Red Hawks goals. And then the first leg, well, Slough electing to have their first leg at home, potentially due to ice time bits and pieces. But either way, as you can see there, the Dynamos put up a hell of a fight. It took the Jets until the 49th minute to get themselves in front, but they do eventually win 2-0 through, well, pretty familiar names. Ollie Hemmings-Marr and Sebastian Moore with the goals for the Jets, who took a slim lead into Sunday's game. But only, as you can see there, the difference in shots, a 15-shot shutout for Matt Smittle. Brad Windyman makes 54 saves. And then the following night, it was always going to be a tough uphill one for the Dynamos, but the Jets jumped on them. 4-0 up at the end of the first period, 7-0 up 2 minutes into the third, before the Dynamos eventually decided to pipe up and put some bits and pieces in. Harrison Lillis with 2 goals on the night, which shows you what sort of an odd evening this was, and 1 from Aaron Connolly, because Aaron Connolly always scores during the playoffs, if nothing else. But the Jets, off the back of 2 goals from Carl Bradburn and goals from Sebastian Moore, Connor Redmond, who's announced that he is stepping back. We wish him all the best for what comes after hockey. And the goals as well from Ed Cave Humphrey, Juha Lindgren and Ollie Hemmings-Marr. The Jets marched back to the Steel City Showdown. And then there is the second leg on the high road. And, well, not quite as tight. And ultimately, the end, the final curtain on the Chieftains' coaching career of Lewis Clifford. Congratulations on all he's done. Obviously, 1 cup and 1 playoff win under his belt as he calls time on his career behind the bench at the Riverside. The lone Chieftains goal in this one coming from Ollie Baldock. Goals for the Redhawks in this one coming from Louis Colvin, Danny Ingoldsby, Roman Cathcart and Luke Brittle. And then North 2. And this one is probably the big surprise of the lot, it should be said, because of what happened. The Titans have been the team to really rival Sutton across the thing. They were the ones who led the division for a large swathe of it before eventually falling short, knocked out of the cup, losing out on the league, and then seemingly shooting themselves in the foot in the playoffs. D-side 6, Sheffield 2 in the first leg at Queen's Ferry on Saturday night, and a massive evening for the D-side Dragons too, who seem to have picked up seemingly out of nowhere, but with a few of their big names back in the lineup, were able to cause some real damage. 2 goals for Cody Ogden, as well as goals for Stuart Cutting, James Shaw, James Parsons and Reece Howells. 2 goals from Harry Roebuck for the Titans in this one. As you can see there, relatively even on the shot count, but Finn Ogden managing to keep the Titans at bay. And then the other semi-final wasn't close at all, was the Billingham Buccaneers got completely blown out by the Sutton Sting at Ice Sheffield. The champs are the champs. Good teams find a way, but they are the champions for a reason. When it came down to it, Billingham have been a pretty solid side across this year, but when it came down to the crunch in the first leg of this tie, the Sting blew them away. Stephen Wallace, the veteran, with the lone Buccaneers goal in this one. For the Sting, a hat-trick for Joe Colton. Also on the ball were Adam Brooke-Smith, Ryan Apsley, Jamie Scott, Lawson Glasby and Connor Medley. A pretty quiet night all in all for Nathaniel Bell. Just the 1 goal and the 28 shots for him, whereas Ryan Wardell and Chris Outhwaite both ending up getting time in the net for the Buccaneers. The Bucks did pull up a bit more of a fight the following evening, knowing, well, they were going to have to pull off something of a mild miracle, but they do end up losing at home, despite having a much better result. Buccaneers 4, Sting 5. It's a 13-5 aggregate victory for the league champions in the end, as the Buccaneers head into the summer off the back of a pretty crushing playoff semi-final defeat. Goals for the Buccaneers from James McCabe, Leighton Wilkinson, Matt Pickup and Chris Lutz. The Sting's goals, 2 for Joe Colton, 2 for Ryan Apsley and 1 for James Spencer. And then in South 2, it was home ice for the league champions on Saturday. That's because the Flames were at home on Sunday. They didn't really give the Phoenix much of a choice. But a confident 5-2 victory over the resurgent MK Thunder, who had come into the playoffs looking like they could potentially be dark horses. However, the league champs putting a stop to the momentum and managing to hold things at bay in this one with that 5-2 victory. A hat-trick on the night for Sol Stoodley, Josh Sherrington and Scott Bailey with the other goals for the Phoenix. For the Thunder, well, one of the big things is probably trying to keep Marks Canis at bay, though he did get 2 assists. Hayden Hagar and Ryan Wanfor with the goals for the Thunder. The other semi-final, well, Peterborough and Haringey knew they were going to end up meeting, and Peterborough did a Peterborough. We don't know when they scored one of the goals, which I will ask Joe about. Is more just a case of they just didn't tell you the time, or you couldn't read it, because I've tried to read a few game sheets recently, and some people's handwriting is even worse than mine. But despite the Huskies going 1-0 up in the first period, thanks to Carl Etawazim, the Phantoms, they're a bit like Nelson Muntz. You made them bleed their own blood. They didn't like it. 7-1 at the end of the first leg. Nick Martin, Jordan Ho, James White, AJ Herring, Leo Markey, Connor Pollard and Nathan Pollard all on the score sheet for Phantoms 2. As they took a very large step towards another appearance in Sheffield. Dylan Phillips letting in 7 goals on 61 shots. A pretty busy evening for the Huskies netminder. The following night at Alexandra Palace, the end of the road for the Huskies. Again, much like Billingham, they put up a good fight in the second leg, but were unable to stop the tide. 5-4 Peterborough win on the night, 12-5 on aggregate, and the Huskies head off for the summer, scratching their heads about coming close. But again, no cigar for the Alexandra Palace side as Connor Pollard's side continue get themselves back to the Seal City Showdown. Martin Jazz, Ruskin Springer Hughes, Rob Rayner and Jaden Bulkar with the goals for the Huskies. For Phantoms 2, Dan Martin, Nathan Pollard, James White, Leo Markey and Jordan Little with the goals there. And then, well, we had a bit of a tough one on Sunday because this game was ended at the end of the second period, but the result ends up standing. MK 1, Guildford 4. An injury to a Guildford player ends up with the game being called early, but the result stands. The Phoenix are back to the Steel City Showdown and another date with the Peterborough Phantoms. One's at the Cup, one's at the League. We'll see what happens this time. But yes, 9-3 in aggregate in the end. Xander Robinson with the lone goal for the MK Thunder. Sol Studley, Daniil Sakantsev, Ollie Dennis and Josh Abbott with the Phoenix goals in this one. What that means, if I press some buttons here, and then press that, we can have a look at what it means for the Steel City Showdown. Here is the North One playoff tree. Big thanks to the folk at England Ice Hockey as we nabbed the graphics off of them. But having its first versus second in the league, then it's the league winners versus the cup winners in North One. Blackburn versus Deeside on Saturday evening in North One. In South One, well, first versus second there as well, as Slough, having marched their way through, having managed to score 35 goals across the 4 playoff games they've played so far, take on a much more battle-tested Streatham Redhawks. And the Redhawks have fallen short against Slough over the course of this season and last. Can they finally manage to land a blow on Lucas Smithill's side? In North 2, this is where the big surprises are, because in the North, it is all Deeside Saturday, as it were. The Deeside Dragons 2 running the table, beating the third, coming from 6th to beat the 3rd seed Coventry NIHL Blaze, beat the 2nd seed Sheffield Titans, and they have set up a date with the undisputed League and Cup champions. The Sutton Sting are going for the Grand Slam, but they have to get past a resurgent Deeside team who seem to have turned into real playoff animals. And then in South 2, it just had to be. They seem destined to do this dance forever. It could be the final ride in Division 2 for the Peterborough Phantoms 2. Of course, talked about stepping up last year and then didn't due to other factors, mostly Slava Kudakov leaving Peterborough as a club. But if this is to be the end, the moment will be prepared for. The Peterborough will either go out on their shield in the Southern Final or will take another step towards another national title and potentially another date against the Sutton Sting. We'll press that button there. Almost press the other button. How is Player? Player is okay. They are recovering at home, and so on and so. They are recovering at home as far as I'm aware. Apologies, I've just had a. Yes, apologies there. Had a thing come up my something I ordered for my sister. Yes, yeah. As far as I'm aware, player is at home and is okay. So no big dramas on that one. One of those things where potentially it was a bit more it's possibly one of those things where a bit more overly cautious on that one. Someone has just pointed out to me in one of my messages, first tiebreaker was not head-to-head, it's regulation wins in the National Division. So my apologies, I've got that the wrong way round. That's because of trying to remember the Elite League bits and pieces in remembering the Elite League tiebreakers and the National Division tiebreakers, and I got them wrong. That's on me. Thank you all. Let's just quickly point to that. But yeah, Steel City is going to be very, very interesting. What I do want to very, very quickly do, just because I want to get up because they have got the timings out for the games, because I can't remember them off the top of my head, so I'm just very, very quickly going to pull up the timings for this coming for Saturday, for the weekend at least. And of course, the streaming bits and pieces are out for the Steel City Showdown. You can join. What a surprise! Joe Scutts will be back on the call up in Sheffield as well. He'll be joined, as far as I'm aware, by Chris Beale, which should be another high quality commentary production. Very interested in terms of the streaming bits that they are using. They are using Sportway, who do sort of AI automated sports videos. It's used by a lot of different places: Sweden, Finland, Belgium, New Zealand, but a lot of hockey things do use it. Interested to see how that matches up with what Joe and Chris are talking about. But either way, Saturday the 11th, 10:15 a.m. Sutton versus Deeside in the North 2 final. The South 2 final will then be at 1:15. That's Guildford versus Peterborough Phantoms 2. The Division 1 North final will be at 4:15. Blackburn versus Deeside, and then your main event on Saturday, 7:15 in the evening. Hopefully not finishing at quarter to midnight. Slough and Streatham again. And then on Sunday, the division, of course, the winners of those respective games will then play on Sunday the 12th, the Division 2 national final. The winners of the North 2 playoffs versus the winner of the South 2 playoffs. That is a 1 o'clock face-off. And then the winners of the Division 1 North playoffs will face the Division 1 South winners at 4:30 p.m. on Sunday the 12th. If you go to englandicehockey.com, all of the details are there for how you can order your streaming packages, bits and pieces. And like I say, if you want to, you can buy individual games. You can buy a package for your respective leagues. So you can buy like Division 1 or Division 2, or you can get the lot. And then you can listen to the dulcet tones of Joe Scutts and Chris Beale walk you through the end of the NHL Division 1 and Division 2 seasons for the most part, bar, of course, that one last game on Sunday the 19th, when for the NHL Final Four weekend at the Coventry Skydome, the 18th and 19th, you get Joe and you get me, which should be a lot of fun. Pausing for a sec, so I realise I've talked really, really fast. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to chuck in about that? Steel City Showdown looks like it is going to be an absolute cracker. Having a look at it, Division 2, really hard to see past Sutton. Now, D-side have managed to run the table here. As I said, knocked off the 3rd seed, knocked off the 2nd seed into the bargain. And maybe perhaps the tent in North 2 isn't as wide as we first imagined, and maybe D-side have just gotten a good draw, because of course we saw what Sutton did to Billingham, and the Buccaneers at North 2 level are no slouches. It is very hard to see past Sutton though for North 2. South 2 could go either way, as we have seen. Peterborough, I mean, they almost slipped up in the cup against Guildford, but did get themselves over the line. Did win the Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup as well, did Peterborough. But then, in the big winner-takes-all game in the league, which happened to be in Guildford, the Phoenix found their way through the mire and managed to hold on to their league title, going back to back to back for 3 years in a row. This one is much more of a coin toss. I think a lot will be established very, very early on here. The issue for both sides is that the others are very, very capable of scoring. I'm interested to see who starts in goal for Guildford in this one. We're pretty certain Luke Clark will start between the Pikes of Phantoms too. But it may, given the fact that Peterborough out of the playoffs, you'd assume that Clark will be with the twos alongside Ryan Bainborough, and they get the option there. But interested who Guildford go with for between the Pikes for them. And like I say, early goals. Peterborough have a real tendency and have at times against Guildford put on goals early, and Guildford don't chase games brilliantly against Peterborough. So that could be the big one there. North one, this is a tough one because Blackburn have proven over the course of the season that they can grind teams down. The one thing you have to be to win a league title at any level in British hockey is pretty relentless because of the grind that it is. However, we have seen that D-side have found ways to solve Blackburn in one-off situations. And that is the big one here. Everybody is putting their money on Blackburn. Don't count out D-side in a moment like this, because ultimately you're going to get potentially a big net-minding duel between Harrison Walker and Tyler Delabatouche, Adam Barnes versus Jake Witkowski, Lutwich versus Cromie. The issue here is that ultimately that Blackburn backline is better. What you need to potentially do if you D-side is go a bit run and gun here and try and make Blackburn, because Blackburn's defence is good, but is it as mobile? And that's where the big sign will come, I think, here. If D-side can make Blackburn's defence do a lot of skating around, that could potentially be where they can unlock some bits and pieces here, because Harrison Walker is good, but can he stop everything? Now we know, obviously, D-side have the ability to win games where they get into firefights, but Blackburn are not Hull. Blackburn are not Widnes. Blackburn are Blackburn, and Blackburn are the champs of this division and can shut teams down. We saw what they did to Billingham last weekend. Yeah, give the edge to Blackburn, but you can't be anybody saying Blackburn are a cert are counting their chickens before they hatch. Slough versus Streatham, you'd put your money on Slough. You put your money on Slough for it, mostly just because of the record this season. The issue, of course, for Slough is that if anybody knows what they need to do, it's Streatham. The trick is, can Streatham do it? As Joe's put in the chat, this one I'll give away for free. Blackburn versus Deeside is Game 7. The series is tied at 3 each. You gotta love it. What a cracker that is. What a cracking stat. 3 apiece, neutral venue, biggest game of the North 1 season, right here, right now. I love hockey so much, man. It's the best. It's just the best. That is going to be amazing. Yes, it's probably not the season series between Slough and Streatham is not the same. But Ben Painter, of course, we know will be back as coach next season of the Red Hawks. Having spoken to him very briefly during the week, they have a plan. They've just got to execute the plan, because ultimately Slough are not perfect. They are beatable, and Streatham have beaten them. The question, of course, is that how do you you think about the last couple of years, and Jack Goodchild's not played this year for a bunch of different reasons, and you think about Seb Moore, Christian Moore, Luke Smittle, and now this year with people not doing as much, Ollie Hemmings-Marr has stepped up. They've got a better rounded defence, adding in Alex Cole, Marcus Mitchell, Neil Lydiard seemingly apparently being a cyborg and never dying, but also bringing up youngsters like Jude Affleck into the bargain as well. What happens this time around? Because of course last year at the Steel City Showdown, Slough got stung in OT. Roland's Gritans ruined the party, and then Slough took it out very much on Billingham the next week. If we end up with Slough versus Blackburn, what do we get the following week at the Steel City Showdown, where people will 100% be keeping receipts in their back pocket? Juha Lindgren is classic. Yes, Juha as well, of course, despite having all that time off to go back to Finland, is a fair point on that one as well, John. And yeah, unfortunately, being an Invicta fan, it should be said. Like I say, it's going to be a cracking weekend. If you can, go watch. Ice hockey is always better live. If you want to tune in from a distance, Joe and Chris No are brilliant. Are going to be brilliant. Definitely should check them out. Make sure that you get, if you get your streams and bits and pieces. Obviously, I will struggle to watch on Saturday because Muggins here will be in Guildford for Guildford versus Sheffield, which I have started doing some preparing for, and then I have a week to prepare for Coventry into the bargain, which should be fun. Ultimately, this weekend is going to be a really cracking weekend of hockey from an England perspective, if nothing else, because Steel City Showdown weekend going to be amazing. National Division final weekend of the playoff group stages, and then you got all the stuff in the Elite League as well, which of course which is our British wide league. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. What we will do, very very quickly, let's have a quick look at the bits and pieces from the WNIHL. I forgot to mention, of course, SNL bits and pieces. Connor over at SNL Ice Hockey Updates. Go find them on Facebook. England Ice Hockey didn't do their graphics, so Andrew Day, who gives me all the updates and bits and pieces on the WNHL, has given me these bits and pieces to talk about. No games in the Women's Elite League because of GB. We'll talk about GB momentarily. So we will talk about the games that did happen across the last weekend. Not that many, as we know. WNIHL won North, and the win in the Scottish Derby for the Caledonia Steel Queens, heading across to Dumfries, beating the Sharks by 6-3. Emily Campos with 2. Beth Diaz-Schoon, Molly McGillan, Nicola Russell, Violet Mayer with the goals for the Steel Queens. Goals for the Solway Sharks ladies from Rusa Salonen and 2 from Cassie McGregor. A tough one to take for the Sharks. They were 2-0 up at the end of the first period. The other game then from Sunday, and a win for the Kingston Diamonds, looking to return to the WNIHL elite if they can. A 3-1 win over the Nottingham Vipers certainly helps their position atop the table in that one. If we have a quick look, the WNHL North 1 standings, as you can see there, Kingston 4 points clear of the Steel Queens, but just he says doing some quick maths. Still Queens do have a game in hand, which of course will rein them in, but it is very much the top two all off by themselves. A couple of games this weekend in North 1. Nottingham will take on Solway on Sunday. That's an 11 a.m. face-off. Also on Sunday, Widnes versus Sheffield is a 4:25 face-off. North 2, from the North 2 Valerie, pretty comprehensive win as you can see there for the Blackburn Hawks, a 10-2 win for them over Sheffield Shadows 2. There is one game in that division this weekend. Whitley Bay Beacons 2 take on Blackburn. That's a 12 p.m. face-off on Sunday up at Hillheads. Beacons 2 lead that division by a point over Diamonds 2. And then in the North Elizabeth Conference, as you can see, well, the Manchester Storm women gave the Leeds Storms a bit of a kicking. This is the one that was held over in Bradford due to ice availability, but 13 goals on the board for the Storm. Ines Brannan with 4, Olivia Clough and Jessica Thorpe both on 2. Jessica Burns, Evelyn Peake and Sarah Connolly also on the scoreboard. We had 2 unknown goal scorers from that one. Leeds goal scorers were Lucy Hurst and Phoebe James. And then the one game that was played in South 1 and another win. Like I say, another win for. I haven't seen him in the chat tonight. He might be busy. But our friend Dave and his Cambridge Kodiaks with a pretty comprehensive victory, 5-2 win at home for the Kodiaks over the Chelmsford Cobras, and what a night for Christina Ashley. 4 goals on the evening for her. Joa Hoshizaki with the other goal for the Kodiaks. Victoria Webley and Connie Fiddler other goals with the goals for the Chieftains in that one. In the division standings at the moment in South 1 do look a bit like this. Top Cats 16-2, still very much in a good position atop the table. The Kodiaks, well, they're getting themselves into striking distance, but not quite close enough at the moment as it stands. That was it domestically in the WNIHL, but coming up this weekend, starting on Sunday the 12th, GB off to the World Championships for Division 1 Group B. They will be in Puigcerdá in Spain to take on Korea, the host Spain, Latvia, Netherlands and Kazakhstan. There will be, of course, no games and bits and pieces in the Women's Elite. No games actually in the Women's Elite League until the 26th of April when Streatham and Solihull will meet on the High Road and Guildford will take on the Queen Bees at the Spectrum. But in terms of GB, as I say, they start this coming Sunday. They play Korea in their first game and then we'll play Spain the following night on the 13th. Back to action on the 15th against Latvia, and then we'll play on Friday the 17th against the Netherlands, and Saturday the 18th they take on Kazakhstan to round out that tournament as GB look to try and progress to Division 1A. We also have the GB men's under 18s. He says trying to quickly pull that up as well as he says trying to press a few buttons to get bits and pieces. Go away. Tournament list. Let's get up the GB under 18s as well if we can. Men's under 18 Worlds. That's what we want. Season 2026. Just try and find Romania because GB in Division 2A heading out to Romania. Our Great Britain. So as it stands for GB, they will start this coming Sunday as well. It's a 5:30 p.m. face-off for the GB men's under 18s against the hosts Romania on Sunday, followed by Monday at 2 p.m. against China. They then are back in action on the 15th. They take on Spain at 2 o'clock before following a similar before actually playing on the 16th of April against Croatia. That is a 10:30 a.m. face-off our time, 12:30 local, and they will finish off on Saturday 2 p.m. against Japan. It's a pretty tough group, all in all for GB, but hopefully able to at least potentially get themselves a medal out of it. They obviously did announce the roster the other day for GB, which, as was noted earlier, does include 5 members of the Leeds Knights. Should be hopefully a promising tournament. Harry Thomas and Max Van Mullen from a net mining perspective, that looks pretty good. Either way, the lot is done. obviously not as many games as before, but we have covered every game, senior, men's and women's, from every division that was played across Great Britain in the last week or so. The door is open. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to chuck in the chat before we head off. And a few of you get yourselves ready for a trip to Sheffield. Let's have what conversation do we need to have? The NHL playoffs still within sight. We know that Minnesota and Dallas will meet in the first round in the West. Oh. So we know that's coming. That'll be a pretty interesting contest. A lot of talk, of course. Will Alexander Ovechkin retire at the end of this season? He has not committed one way or the other. I'm pretty certain he'll go for one more year and try and get to 1,000 regular season goals, but we will see what happens on that front. But yeah, playoffs on show everywhere. And then, of course, like I say, the best bit, the Australian season kicks off soon. New Zealand season kicks off in May. WNIHL season, though, is still going to be rumbling for a while. So if you're devoid of hockey, there's definitely hockey to find if you want to go look for it. And then, of course, we've got women's finals towards the back end of May. Cracking amount of hockey to be enjoyed wherever you can find it. So go watch something that you don't usually watch. There's plenty to find on your doorstep. As somebody who is very, very big about trying to find bits and pieces from all over. Also following hockey worldwide on Instagram has been great, mostly because they pick up every single sort of random league that's been won, and they also seem to have a bit of a highlight from it as well. Like I watched they had the last minute or so of the deciding game of the Turkish Super League. That was pretty awesome. I love that kind of thing. The other bit of news that did come out, though, which will be a bit of a head scratcher, speaking of our friends in Australia, the Division 2A World Championships cancelled. That will not be happening. UAE unable to fly. Australia pulling out because of logistics once the tournament was moved away from the UAE. It was initially going to be held in Georgia. 4 of the teams of the 6 were prepared to play, but the IIHF instead has cancelled the tournament. There will be no promotion. There will be no promotion into Division 2A. There'll be no relegation down from 1B into 2A. It will basically freeze for a year. So the folks currently playing in 2B in tournament that's happening in Bulgaria, all they basically have to do is try and stave off relegation for the most part. He says quickly pulling bits and pieces out because the Division 4 men's worlds that were due to be held in Kuwait, those were cancelled. He says just double checking. So what have we got? So yeah, Division 4 Worlds cancelled. 13th to the 18th of May is the Division 3B Worlds. Those are in Hong Kong. So that one. So Division 3B is the hosts Hong Kong, the Philippines, Uzbekistan, Mongolia, North Korea, and Luxembourg. Is how that one stands at the moment. Division 3A will also be 13th to the 19th of April. Those will be held in Cape Town in South Africa. That's going to be they'll of course be the hosts South Africa taking on Thailand, Turkmenistan, Turkey, Mexico, and Bosnia Herzegovina. And then as at the moment, the one that is ongoing is the Division 2B worlds that are taking place in Sofia. So as that currently stands at the moment, Iceland, 2 games have been played. Iceland are currently top, having won both their games, followed by Israel, Chinese Taipei, Kyrgyzstan, New Zealand, and the host Bulgaria are actually bottom of the table at the moment, having lost both of their games so far in this sort of new format of worlds that they are doing. But yes, Division 2A that was due to be held in the UAE has been cancelled. 1B is in China. That's the 29th of April to the 5th of May. 1A is in Poland. 1B could be quite an interesting one. Spain, Estonia, the Netherlands, Romania, China, and South Korea are in that one. 1A is Japan, France, Lithuania, Kazakhstan, Poland, and Ukraine, as the teams there look to try and stamp their place back in the World Group. GB, of course, not facing off in their campaign until the World starts on the 15th of May. I'm just pulling up the information because GB will get underway on May the 16th is their first game. 11:20 face-off on the 16th of May against Austria, which is a huge game in terms of potentially trying to stay in the world pool if they can get a result out of that. Buffalo broke one of the longest playoff non-participation strikes last night. They did indeed. The Buffalo Sabres head with the Florida Panthers out of Stanley Cup playoff contention, so the champions are out before the starting gun even fires, and Buffalo, who potentially look like they could be an outside bet for a Stanley Cup itself. I'm not sure what Buffalo Bills fans would do if the Sabres managed to get a Stanley Cup before the Bills get their hands on the Lombardi Trophy again. But that one is what it is on that front. But yeah, like I say, keep putting bits in the chat for a couple of minutes. Just like I say, if there's bits you want to mention. Like I say, for me, the last game of my run in Guildford for the season this coming Saturday. Quite strange to think that started back in August with the visit of Amiens. I only missed the one game, which was something that was already pre-booked. So I'm sure I'll miss. I'm sure it's whatever happens for next season, that games will be missed. But it is what it is on that front. That is part of life. But I feel all right about it. I'm going to kind of sit down and reflect on things a little bit more once the season is finished. I think I'm trying to kind of stay in the moment, not kind of look back too far before I've finished now, as it were. Got a lot of stuff I want to prepare for Saturday. Guildford and Sheffield meeting in the playoffs. Actually met in the playoff quarterfinals in Guildford's first season in the Elite League, so a few bits to look at there. But yeah, I'm pleased. I seem to have landed all right with what I've done in Guildford so far. The hope is I'll be given the opportunity to go on and have another crack at it, I think, and see what happens. But one game left at the Spectrum for the year, and then I will go to Coventry. Joe and I are going to do our level best to give the best call we can of the last 4 games of the NIHL season, and then I will have a break for a couple of weeks, I think, or at least until something interesting pops up. And like I say, there's the AIHL to keep me entertained for the next couple of months or so that'll be really, really good. But looking forward to getting back to Coventry. I massively enjoy being up there. Of course, I get to see a lot of my friends, not just hockey related, but also as I usually do, I'll be staying with friends up there, so I get to hang out with them, which is always really, really awesome. And it's just one of those really, really cool things that I get to do. I mean, a lot of people did ask, would I be in Nottingham, and the answer is I get to commentate on the NHL finals instead, so that's where I'm going to be. Would I go to Nottingham? Yeah, give me a microphone. I think would probably be my thing on that. But it's a thing to kind of take as it comes. Ultimately, Joe and I together works really, really well, and I think whilst people want to take advantage of that combination, I will keep standing alongside my friend, who also just happens to be one of the best hockey commentators in Britain. Let's keep rolling with that. Big weekend for ticket sales for Coventry. Could be make or break for PI, hoping that the bigger fan bases get through. Could be. Yeah, I think as well. I think people will be interested to just be there. I think they'll be. Will they fill the place out? I don't know. It's looking quite tight that they will, but I'm certainly interested in the. I'm interested to see, of course, who makes it, because I think if Hull make it, there'll be a massive influx from Hull. I really, really genuinely believe that Seahawks fans will turn out en masse for the first time, making it back to the finals since the Pirates made it and won it in 2019. I think that'll be a very, very big marker as well, because I think the opportunity to see your team do it will be it. That's a lie and you know it. No, it's not. You just don't like hearing it, Joe, and that's the difference. Last call. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to chuck in the chat. Do it very, very quickly now before we head on out. But yes, the joy of the Easter holiday and then the joy of taking time off work for Coventry means that I have 4 back-to-back 4-day weeks. That's pretty fun. This week, of course, last week, of course, because of the bank holiday was off on the Friday. Then this week, off on the Monday. Next week I'm off on the Friday, and the following week I'm off on the Monday. So I've taken off the Friday and the Monday just to make sure I get some time just to kind of chill out, relax, and do bits on my own time. Fridays generally for the commentary at the moment. What I will generally end up doing is, because my son will be in school, get him off to school. We'll have a day of just preparing, getting everything ready. He will come home from school. I'll hang out with him for a little bit, and then I kind of hit the road, head up to my friend's house in Coventry, and then chill out there. Because it's become sort of my little tradition on the Saturday now, is that I will head out the house and I get the bus into Coventry. Oh yes, Joe has put here, if you're in Sheffield or Coventry, no beer please. Sugar-free Monsters will be greatly appreciated. I will take your beer. Sugar-free Monsters for Joe. Beer and coffee for me, I think is what I will say. On that front, just because I can't drink Monster. Horrible things. But this is also why, Joe can take that portion of it. I will take the more classic form of my stimulants, if that's all right. But yes, sugar-free Monsters for Joe. Let's see if we can just get this sort of little tower of cans behind us or next to us in the Sky Dome on the weekend that we're there. But also as well, if you're in Sheffield, get Joe a Monster when you're in Sheffield as well. I don't know what Chris Beale drinks. Chris doesn't strike me as a big energy drink person. He strikes me more as a coffee person. But I will let Chris deal with that a bit. He can put in his own requests for this coming weekend. Nothing else I can see. I'll very, very quickly check the bits and pieces. Can't see any other news immediately leaping out that we need to be aware of. The first thing that shows up for me is the Belfast Giants Player of the Month, because fine. Nothing else that I can see in the immediacy. I'm quite nervous about the weekend, although atmosphere on Saturday in MK should be great. MK versus Leeds games were always a great watch. Last year's semi-final proves it. Yeah, but this is what we want. This is what sport is for. This is why people play sport. This is why we watch it, for these moments of high drama and the build and the build and the build to the great crescendo from the person who likes to write stories. You want the build up. You need the build up. You have to have the November to have the May, right? And so for me, it's Saturday. There's no bad game to be at across this weekend, really. If you're in Scotland, go to Fife. Or go to Glasgow and watch the playoff game between the Clan and the Steelers, or go watch the Scottish Cup final and go watch the women's playoffs, or go watch Edinburgh play in North Ayr. If you're in the north of England, you can go to Sheffield and you can watch the Steelers versus Guildford, or you can go to the Steel City Showdown, which of course will be next door. If you're in the south, Sheffield might be a bit of a stretch for you, but you'll have games in Romford. You can go watch Guildford versus Sheffield on the Saturday evening. There's stuff to be done. It's about going and finding it. We will call it there. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to British hockey. In the Box Thinking will be up tomorrow. As I said, it'll be a review of Guildford versus Manchester and some thoughts ahead of Guildford versus Sheffield on Saturday evening. Hockey Stories is there as well, long-form, in-depth bits from across the breadth and depth of British and world hockey, from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. Go check out our chat with Nick Rothwell on the power of stories. Go check out our chat with Brad Manello. Go check out our Hockey Stories history piece, like the Gentleman Flyer, The Tale of Constantine Cantacuzino. You have 15 years worth of stuff to go check out over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Head down into the description to go check out all the links to our socials. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Blue Sky. You've got the link to Lee's 3D printing bits and pieces should you want anything. You've also got the link to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. If you want to help keep the lights on, keep the wheels spinning, it's greatly appreciated. Like I say, going to be experimenting with some stuff over the summer to try and make some changes for next year's What's Current stream. We'll see how that goes. But otherwise as well, all the YouTube bits, like, subscribe, share the video. We do have a lot of fun here on Wednesday nights, but let's get as many people as we can tuning in. It would be awesome if we can do that, especially as we head towards next weekend and the final one before the Elite League and the National Division playoff weekends. We'll have a big review as well of the Steel City Showdown into the bargain. That should be a lot of fun. Like I say, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all of that good stuff. Leave a comment, keep the algorithm hamster happy, fat and fed. And then, of course, we'll be back next Wednesday night, 8 PM, here on the BOTW YouTube channel for the only live show that covers every game across every division play that is here. That is the BOTW What's Current stream. The end is in sight. And for a few teams, this weekend is the end. Division 2 finishes as of Sunday. The SNL is creeping ever closer towards its playoff weekend as well. That'll be on the 18th and 19th of April too. Division 1, well, it mostly ends this weekend with one little extra. The National Division and the Elite League will seal off the bits before the weekend this weekend as the WNIHL puts its support behind GB women, and we keep half an eye on GB under 18s as well. This is a fantastic time of year. Enjoy it. Try and enjoy it. I get being nervous. Do be nervous because it's an exciting time, right? But try and enjoy it as well. It is the whole point. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do everything you can to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Wars would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For Banners on the Wall, WordPress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. Have a great weekend of hockey wherever you find it. Enjoy it. Try not to bite too much of your fingernails off. And we will see you back here for all of the news and for all of the recap of everything that happened this past weekend on the BOTW